Welcome to Association Chat, an online discussion where we warm ourselves by the virtual fire with topics of the day, welcoming thought leaders and trailblazers alike to join up in this online home for the community. I'm your host, KiKi L'Italien, and what does it really mean to lead with intention, especially when the world around you is in flux? In this episode of Association Chat Podcast, we are getting personal and practical with Wendy-Jo Toyama. She's the CEO of the American Epilepsy Society. Got to get that out there. And the 2025 recipient of ASAE's prestigious Key Award, which was just announced last week, folks. So with political polarization, cultural shifts, and mounting organizational pressure, association leaders are searching for ways to stay grounded in their values while adapting to constant change. This conversation that we're going to have today will hopefully shine a light on how intentional leadership isn't just about strategy, it's about identity, inclusion, and creating spaces where people truly belong. All right, enough of the intro. Let's get Wendy-Jo up here. Hi, Wendy. I'm so glad you can join us today.
Thank you, KiKi, for welcoming me. And thank you for mentioning the award. And I have to say, back at you. So congratulations to you too.
Thank you. Yeah, this was kind of a surprise. And I was very, very excited to hear about the news. And then we already had this interview scheduled. And it was perfect timing because I thought, oh, well, this is wonderful. You and I haven't really had a chance to talk or anything. So this was a great chance to talk about all of the great work that you do. I've definitely been listening to several podcasts that you've been on before to prepare for this today. And I can tell you that people are really excited. We already have people who are commenting. We see Reed out there saying, hi, everyone. And V, I'm so again, listened to a wonderful interview that you two had on her great podcast. And then Joanna, of course, another great podcaster out there. Joanna says, I'm ready. Two of my favorite people on the planet. Yay, Joanna, you're one of mine too. One of mine too. And we have Liz saying congratulations to both of you. So lots of great comments coming in, lots of support from the community. But I wanted to get started and just talk with you a little bit about the history of how you came to be in the position that you're in. You have had such an interesting and varied leadership journey. Can you take us back to the beginning? What first sparked your interest in associations?
Oh, goodness. Thank you. It's a great question. So many of us come into this sideways. And I will say I started actually in associations because I wasn't advancing in a corporate setting. I had gotten my MBA. Tribune had paid for it. And when I looked to advance, I looked around and, nobody looked like me. And so I stepped into nonprofits. And I think nonprofits are just fabulous places for growth. I particularly like to recommend them to women and people of color. I think they're environments of scarcity, and when you do your job, you can lean in to do all kinds of other things. So I moved into nonprofits and went from a very small children's museum to my first association job, and I really loved it. I thought I wouldn't feel the mission at a professional association as opposed to a social service agency. And I was so surprised at the passion and time and values that the volunteer leaders bring to the space that they're in. And I was kind of hooked. I mean, I think for a little while, I thought I was a marketing professional that worked in an association. I had a mentor who said, go back and get your CAE. And I'm like, I have an MBA. I don't need a CAE. And she's like, oh, you do. You have to signal to the community that this is your profession and that you're committed. And it was some of the best advice I got. I went back, got my CAE, and that's how I started. I will say that the path to a CEO took some time. And I had to be very flexible on location, size, and pay, and eventually landed a CEO position, but it was through a lot of persistence. I had a lot of interviews before I landed that first CEO job.
That's so incredible to hear a little bit about how you got to be where you are today. I know that our discussion and focus, this idea of leading with intention, that is such a meaningful phrase. And I know it can mean a number of different things to different people. So, what does it personally mean to you, and how has it shaped your leadership style?
I loved that. I love this question because my word for the year, which I have now because of Joanna, is intention. Actually,
Oh,
oddly enough, and I think what intention looks like can change at different points in your career and different places where you're at. Right now, for me, I think what that really means is sometimes we have to say no to things. And I think that that's really an interesting idea for people. I think sometimes the most important things we do might be things we don't do. Um,
yeah, that's
you
true.
know, and so I really, I will say that when I was in my first transition, I had a career coach who actually helped me narrow my focus for my search, which seemed counterintuitive because I think when you're looking for a job, it feels a big sense of urgency to land something. And I think you might initially feel casting a wide net is what you need to do, but creating more focus on what my values were, what I wanted to accomplish, and really creating an intention statement that I was going to,
Ooh.
seeking a leadership position with an organization, looking for change, valuing a marketing perspective by a certain date. And it really helped focus my search. I think that was the beginning of really appreciating what intention can bring to something.
How fascinating. I wanna know more about how your process for crafting an intention statement. Um,
Mm.
just because I think that that's something I don't have one, like, and so if I were to sit down and go through the Wendy-Jo Toyama, uh, activity of crafting the intention statement, how would you tell me to do that?
Oh, that's so interesting. So first, I can't claim it as mine. Vicki Austin was my coach at the time.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
I think, I think what I was encouraged to do was think very specifically. So you might be able to do it with another person, right? Having them ask you questions. So
Ah,
I knew that I wanted to be in an association. Well, the association space is big and wide. So she helped me really focus in on what did I want to do, what were the unique values I was going to bring to the role. And I think that really, the search process is a sacred process, right? And I think in the beginning, you want to be the person that they want. And then that doesn't actually work out well because you need to be the person that you are. Um, and I think if you trust in that and lead with your values and what you want to do very specifically, you'll find the place where your gifts meet a need in the world,
mm.
right? So I think it's about asking very specific questions.
Yeah. Yeah. This is so fascinating to me because I'm beginning to just because we haven't really spoken before, but I've listened to you on interviews, and even in this exchange, I'm already learning and beginning to see you are very intentional about all of these different things. You talk just now about the importance of identifying how you're bringing yourself to an organization when you're going through that process. And you have led as a leader through some major transitions professionally. How do you stay grounded in your values during moments of organizational
Mhm.
uncertainty?
Yeah, I believe in the power of pausing.
Hmm.
I think that when things feel urgent or in crisis, we want to react. We're leaders. We want to do something. There's a lot of power in pausing. And I also work to bring curiosity with me.
Hmm.
So that forces me to slow down and ask questions and get information. I think in associations, we have people bring things to us that are crisis. And very few things are actually a crisis. And helping folks remember that is important. I can't say it's not brain surgery anymore because I have brain surgeons as my members, but many things aren't actually crises. And I think that's important to remember. I also like to remind folks that, you may be imposing, there may be a deadline or a parameter. And so you feel like that's a barrier to doing something. But many times those are actually things that you can push against and change. And so I think sometimes we forget to look wider, and we think we're in this box, and we may not actually be. There may be some things we can do if we take a beat, get some information, question some things that we think aren't changeable that might be, and ask questions. So I think it's really important as leaders to take a moment and gather information and think about how you want to enter this situation, enter this room. What kind of person do you want to come into this discussion as?
Yeah. That's a powerful combination there. You're talking about the power of the pause, of pausing and giving yourself a chance to process, and also curiosity, which I think the two together, that is really a powerful combination when you're thinking about if you just brought the power of a good pause, the ability to do that, and curiosity to, I think, most of your life, like we would all benefit, right?
Right.
So it's kind of amazing duo there, 1-2 punch that you've got as far as leadership style. You started your DEI work in the 1990s.
I did.
I mean, time flies when you're having fun. What lessons from that time still guide you today?
This was an interesting question. I was very early in my career. And I think when I think about lessons from that period, many of them are very personal as opposed to organizational. So I'm going to head in that direction, if that's okay.
Yeah.
And I think there are two things. So I was very young at Tribune Company, and I went to my father, and he's Japanese American. We're Okinawan. My mother's English, Irish, Scottish. And I said, Dad, I think the only reason I was included on this committee is because John Madigan, the CEO, knows me. Like, I'm the only Asian he knows. And for those of us, who are of color, it doesn't feel good to feel like you're being picked just because of what you look like. So I was uncomfortable. And my dad leaned in and he said, that's fine. Go, do, learn. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so, it was one of those things where I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I think I've carried that forward, right? That for throughout my career, if there's an opportunity to lean in and learn, just take it. Don't make excuses. Don't worry or wonder or second guess why. Just take advantage of that. Lean in and learn. I think the other thing I would say from that time, the 90s were a long time ago. And I remember there was a diversity consultant in talking to the board and sharing some history of things that had happened in the country. And, he had totally skipped the internment and things that had happened for Asians. And so I went up to him after, and again, I was very junior in my career. And I mentioned that to him. I told him that I thought that might be nice to include in the future. And I remember it was a little bit, it was hard to do. And it felt important. And I think that that's another lesson I bring forward, is that sometimes the tool that we can use is our voice, and we need to use our voice. And I think for women, sometimes that is challenging for a number of reasons. Also for people of color and, Asian women. I had a colleague who asked me, she said, do you think as an Asian woman, you were kind of socialized unconsciously to kind of fade back and have others step forward? And I said, I don't really know. I'm not sure, because I like to be service oriented. But I do know I have to work hard to step forward and use my voice in this way. And it's something that I do, again, with intention, but it's not necessarily something that I would naturally do. And I think part of it is because it's not the Oppression Olympics. There's so many issues, but if I don't share what the Asian experience is, then who's going to do that?
Well, I love that you're bringing this up, because it is, I do want to mention to everyone, I mean, among the many other things that you do and are known for, the AANHPI Heritage Month that's going on right now. It's going on as we're recording this. It's very important for bringing that visibility and to talking about some of these issues that you just mentioned. How do you see the role of identity and representation shaping our field, and how has it shaped you?
I think that in the beginning of my career, I didn't spend a whole lot of time thinking about being the only woman in the room or the only Asian in a room. It just kind of what it was. What I've learned through our AANHPI community is this is a shared experience with many of us. I think the difference now is that it's something that we talk about and we think about. And I think for me, I don't think I realized how I missed seeing someone who looked like me in leadership, because there just wasn't anyone who looked like me. And so I think what's important now about the AANHPI Association community group is that we're coming together. We're thinking about how to lift each other up. And we are seeing others who are forging pathways for us. And that's important, and I think being able to do it in community is powerful. We also learn from each other and our allies. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's a tough time to be going through right now and caring about these issues. And especially as somebody who, you've been personally invested in increasing visibility and working at these efforts. And now we have, and this isn't part of any of the questions that, I prepared, but it's like now I feel like in this political environment and in our society, talking about some of these things can put you in the crosshairs and can cause a lot of, I don't know, even using the wrong terms can make people, what's wrong? DEI anymore? Can we say DEI? Are we going to get in trouble for using that? Are we going to get in trouble for showing our pronouns on our Zoom or our Teams? These are questions and discussions that people are having right now. How are you sort of navigating that? And I don't know, what is your thinking around that? Because it definitely is just kind of a challenging in a number of ways.
Yeah. So I'm going to do some truth telling here. I'm not sure it ever was safe. I'm not sure that clearly it's different now, but it is not as though being different in America was safe.
Ever safe
for everybody.
Right.
So, I think that it's discouraging to see the direction some things are heading, but these are battles that we've had for a long, long time. They never went away. They've always been there. So I think for me, I try not to get discouraged and try to continue to use my voice, which is something I can do. I think from a practical standpoint, as we lead our associations through this time, there's different sets of considerations depending on the space that you're in. And I think that it's really important to consult with your board and your attorney and make the decisions that are right for your community. I will say that, again, working not to be reactive is probably helpful. Some associations have been very reactive to reduce risk and protect their associations, and that has not necessarily gone well for them. The biggest thing I think moving through this time is to ensure that you're helping your organization stay true to its values and figuring out how you do that and what that looks like. And, that doesn't mean we aren't making adjustments at our association. We're thinking about that. But I'm fortunate to work at a place that the day the EOs came out, we opened a bridge program, which was to advance people in the profession who were historically marginalized and minoritized. We opened that up the same day.
Wow.
We talk about it in a broad, inclusive way. It's not a limited application program. But our board doubled down. But not everybody's organization is going to be at that place. So how do you help them walk through it and be informed and understand and make decisions that align with their values? That's what's most important, I think, right now.
I do think that is becoming increasingly it's always been an issue and a challenge, but I think being able to, sort of have these discussions and help to create some sort of sense of belonging across perspectives has become more and more complicated. How can association leaders create that true sense of belonging across perspectives? What are some of the ways that you've uncovered that help you to do that?
So I'm very excited that the organization I'm at right now, we're creating an employee resource group to look at belonging. It's called Belonging at AES. So creating, giving permission to the team to carve out time to do this, I think is important. So that's one way, and it will be grassroots. It'll be informed by what our team thinks would be important to do that. Also, when I was at the Association Management Center, one of the things I loved there that we did was created space for conversations. I remember after the women were murdered in Atlanta, I reached out to our CEO, Steve Smith, and asked if I got a few Asians who were willing to share their story, could we make space for that? And we did, and it was really powerful. I'm not sure our colleagues had heard our stories, and some of them hadn't shared their stories. And that had been something that continues regularly at AMC, conversations on different topics and an opportunity to come together and talk about it. I think those are just two examples, KiKi, that are recent. I'm sure that the folks in the group may have some others, but those are two that come to mind.
Yeah. And I will say, this is a great invitation to those who are watching this live. As many of you may know, and maybe some of you don't know, when we do these interviews, one of the best benefits of doing them live is that if you're watching this and you are out there and we're having this conversation live, you have the ability to ask your questions or make your comments. And I try to incorporate those in. So if you have examples or things that you want to bring up, please feel free to do that. The edited version of the podcast that always comes out like 3 weeks down the road may not have all of these things, but this is the benefit of doing them live, right? So I do want to encourage all of you to continue to make your great comments. There's tons of comments over here. They love you, Wendy-Jo. They love you so much. And this conversation and just sharing. I want to bring out that Sean had said earlier, social self-awareness is at the forefront today. Thank you for talking about this, Wendy-Jo. And Tina was saying earlier, power of pause paired with curiosity are the 1-2 punch. Yes, they are. So good to see those comments out there. I mentioned belonging earlier. Belonging is one of those elements of the association industry that is so incredibly important. It's probably one of the things that I've seen in your work, and I know in my work, that I think it just sort of leads and at the forefront of everything. Just how can we help people to feel more like they belong and they're a part of something where we can work toward a mission together.
Mhm.
And so in that belonging, how do you know, and this is one of the questions that I'd sent a little bit before, but how do you know when belonging is actually truly being felt and not just talked about in a team or a workplace?
This is such a great question. And I think one of the things that is important is that you asked it and it can be measured, it can be
Mhm.
explored. So I think, again, similar to so many things, creating intention around wanting to understand. So I think back to I'm part of a church community. You go to your church wants to be welcoming, it thinks it is welcoming, but then it actually finds out not as much as they think. So, what's important here is there are ways you can find out. You can ask questions, you can do engagement surveys. So I think that there are some very formal ways you can find out, and you can't assume that just
Mhm.
because you think there's a great sense of belonging, that everybody thinks there's a great sense of belonging. You have to ask. And sometimes that feels vulnerable to ask, but you want to know. And if you don't ask,
Mhm.
you won't know. I do think there are some qualitative things you can look for. And so I was thinking about that. You know, taking a page from the hospice book, is everyone feeling seen and heard?
Mhm.
So that's as simple as when you're in a meeting, thinking about, has everyone contributed? If not, you might want to think about that later. You don't want to put someone on the spot. Some of it may be thinking about different styles. Some people like to prepare for meetings, so they might need some time. I also think having employee resource groups is another good way to build a sense of belonging around different topics of interest. And again, you don't want to say what they should be. You
Yeah.
probably want them to bubble up, right?
Right.
Um, so those are a few things. And, ultimately at the end of the day, KiKi, do people want to come into work? Are they happy to come into work? Do they like working with each other? I think those are simple barometers to look at.
Yeah, absolutely. Do they feel safe? Do they feel like they
Right,
can share, bring themselves, right? Actually
right,
bring themselves.
right.
So you mentioned vulnerability. That's another powerful word that allows us to oftentimes be able to create more trust when we're with people that can hold that and recognize that and not take advantage of any sort of vulnerability that we bring. But that's a way that we can connect and bond with other people. You've mentioned vulnerability as a leadership strength.
Mhm.
How do you model that while still maintaining the authority and the direction that you have to also convey in your role as CEO?
For me, I think I grew into this a little bit.
Mhm.
Um, at earlier points in my career, it was more about trying to model the behaviors I saw valued, trying to um, move up the ladder and again, do what I thought I needed to do. I actually had a boss who told me I needed to, be more, I don't even know if they use the term masculine, but honestly, I tried to talk with a lower voice and I got different glasses. And
Oh, wow.
I think at some point, um, I I really thought about the fact that I wanted to be able to bring who I was. I felt that I think it was when I was the CEO for the first time, that the fastest way for the board to be able to work together and trust me was to get to know me. And to get
Mhm.
to know me meant I had to kind of share a little bit about me. And I will say that as a working mother, I never really talked about my kids at work. It just didn't
Mhm.
feel like the thing to do. And again, I started working in the 80s, everybody, just so you know. It was a while ago. Um, and so when I became a CEO, I had spent some time for a few years before that defining my values, and they include family. And so when I interviewed for my first CEO job, I talked about my family in the interview, which I would have never done. Um, but it was with an organization, the American Cleft Palate-Craniofacial Association, that worked with families. Go figure. And
Mhm.
so when I talked about families, it really resonated with them. And so I think for me, being vulnerable was something I had to be comfortable with. I had to be comfortable with being a little more visible, sharing a little bit more about myself than I might normally do. I'm a kind of private person. I know it's surprising to hear. And I think that the important thing about it is to be authentic and to realize what you need to do to show up in that moment. So being authentic doesn't mean you can do whatever you want and wear flip-flops to work and speak truth and use an appropriate language. I mean, there are governors on what we have to do as we show up in a workplace and how we want to show up. And being authentic while keeping in mind the executive presence you want to bring. It's a balance. And I think it takes a little while to grow into it and find the right balance for yourself.
I love that. That's such a
sense, but
yeah, absolutely. A wonderful comment came in from Mariel, and she says, Wendy-Jo and the steering committee of the AANHPI Association community have created such a welcoming and safe space for association professionals. With each community group meeting, there are a growing number of new folks joining us and coming back each month. So, and it was important to you to send me the link for the LinkedIn group. I'm going to post this here in some comments. And also, folks, if you haven't joined this, if you haven't checked it out, if you want to join and show your support, follow along, see what they're doing. This is a fantastic group and community that you built. And I heard a little bit of this story when you were talking with Joanna on her podcast, but would you share a little bit about where this came from and how it developed? Yeah.
Sure. So in the wake of George Floyd's murder, Michelle Mason was still at the forum, and she and I were colleagues and had kicked around a few places. And she reached out and said, maybe we want to form an Asian AAPI, Asian American Advisory Group in Chicago. And I'm like, that would be great. I would love that. So I went back to my LinkedIn and I kind of scrolled through my 1,000+ contacts, and I'm like, there's 10 of us. And guess what? 2 are CEOs and none are women. I'm like, this is amazing. Not in a good way. And so I reached out, Michelle and I talked about it and decided we didn't have enough girth in Chicago to really get it off the ground, and that maybe we would roll the AAPI into the BIPOC group and, save this for another time when we could do it, maybe on a national level. And then Michelle goes on to move to ASAE. So that was like, wow. And so she tapped Don D, who's the founder of our group, and I was a co-founder with him. And so it was again about waiting and the right time. And so we were able to put together a small group of 17 who worked on a strategic plan and kind of started from there. We looked at the other CRGs that were a little bit further along than we were, Hispanic Association execs and Black Association executives for kind of a model of what to do. And we've been growing ever since then. So it's we keep doubling in size, and we did open up our community to all levels. I really love that. And it was because in associations, we learned that only about 4%, we understand, of ASAE members are Asian. That's probably not an accurate number now. It's pretty old. But within the population at large, it's 7%. So we learn. So when we think we don't see a lot of people who look like us, we don't. So what's been really nice is to come together as a group, because I remember being at a meeting where another half Japanese association professional literally chased me down the hall. Thank you, Allegra, to introduce herself to me. And we don't want people to have to chase folks down the hall to find others that look like them. So we're really excited to be able to be that community for everyone, so that you don't have to run around looking for folks who look like you.
Yeah, another wonderful comment came in from someone live. Odessa says, as a new association professional, finding the AANHPI group within ASAE is very empowering and inspiring, especially seeing my fellow AANHPIers shining bright during AANHPI. No less. So yeah. So it's a great month to be witnessing people being recognized, and obviously the community is very supportive and coming together. Even here, you see people showing up and talking about what they're getting, the great benefit and the massive growth that you've been seeing for the community. So I mean, obviously that's a great tribute to you and to all of the people who are working together to make that community shine bright, because we know that it doesn't happen organically. Like it doesn't just happen without anybody putting effort and thought, and there's a lot of love that has to go in along with time and energy and resources. So kudos to you for being able to work on that idea, help develop that, and to obviously have some great people around you to support that too.
Yeah, it's been really probably one of the bright spots every month is the meeting that we have. We carve out time for networking. We asked people what they wanted and found out that was what they wanted. We had been working through these really aggressive agendas every month. And so we scrapped that now, and we have at least 20 minutes usually dedicated to just networking, which has been lovely. And I think there are benefits then, because we know each other better, and we can think about how to support each other in different ways, which we wouldn't have been able to do before. So
it's lovely. I love that. Well, I have a question, then I have some, I've been adding these rapid fire questions that are sort of surprises at the end. So I want to get to those. But before we get to that, I did have a question about another leadership question for the association execs who are watching this right now and are just looking to get a little bit of advice from Wendy-Jo. Here you are, and you're doing so many wonderful things. If there's one guiding principle that you'd offer association leaders facing complexity today, what would it be, and why does it matter now?
There are so many things I could say. I don't think it will surprise people to hear me say, pause and take a breath. Take a breath. The leaders, the members, your professional staff team, they will all take their cues from you. And I think it's really incumbent on us as leaders to certainly go out, gather the information, make sure we're getting data to inform decisions and different perspectives. That's all really important. But when you get down to it, being a CEO or a leader is about relationships. And I think we really need to set the tone and help our leaders see the things that we are doing that are helping the situation, help them see the things we could be doing, and keep them really grounded. And I will say, I just returned from a family reunion in Okinawa, which was super. And one of the things I did at my recent board update was share a picture of a Shinto shrine's Torii Gate from Nara. And it's this beautiful picture of this red gate looking out onto a forest with sort of the sun streaming in the side. And I shared it with them at the end of my talk because that's what I want to do. I want to center them. I want our association to be the place that people can come and feel safe and supported and have it be steady for them. So an anchoring place. So I think that happens with intention, and you have to pause, because this is a time where it would be so easy to just spin. And you want to be that place of centering for those who are looking to you. So that would be my simple piece of advice.
I love it. I think that I'm ready for your book. I'm really ready for your book. I think you need to write one and put it out there, because you have some excellent advice. And I'm feeling the power of the pause right now. I'm definitely feeling like I need to embrace that. I need to think about that. you know, leading with intention and embracing the power of the pause. If you add the curiosity onto it, I tell you what, you've got the whole book right there, Wendy. I'm ready for it. Okay, so this is now taking us to this rapid fire round of questions, which
Okay.
hopefully you'll feel safe with adding just a little bit more vulnerability into answering some of these questions that you have not seen before, you cannot possibly be expecting. But I think this one is sort of a softball. I'm going to give you sort of an easy one because I know what you've just completed doing. We were just talking about this before our interview. So what is your favorite way to recharge after a big conference or board meeting?
Oh, I'm a voracious reader. So we just had a board meeting. I spent all weekend. I'm diving into a new book. And so just I need to be by myself. I tell my husband after I get home from ASAE, if I don't talk to you for a day, it's not you. It's just me. So I need a little time to read and recharge.
Read and recharge. That's a good one. I'm a big reader too. Do you have any books, top 3 books that you would recommend?
Oh, gosh.
I know it's hard. I know it's difficult.
Super hard. I'm actually listening to Essentialism right now. It's a 10-year-old book. I think that's really topical based on what we're discussing.
Yeah.
And then I really like Twyla Tharp's book. I'll have to get the title for you.
Yeah, Twyla Tharp.
She's a choreographer.
Yes.
She has 2 books, and I think they're really unconventional leadership books.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I have those, and I also can't remember. I'm looking over to my bookshelf right now to see if I can spy where it is. But yeah, that's a really great.
Yeah.
Those are some great suggestions. Okay. Next question is, what was your deepest fear in the 5th grade?
Oh, 5th grade. It might have been, I know, people loved me and now they're not. Dogs.
Dogs?
Yeah, I got bit by a small dog on a leash, and my mother swore that I would have to get rabies shots if she couldn't find that dog in the neighborhood. And so she canvassed and found it. But I have a high regard for dogs now. I married into dogs, and I've lived with dogs and had them, but yeah, dogs.
Yeah, so I have some people who are saying, we read that. We read Twyla's book in our book club. Yeah, so Association Chat has a book club. Good memory, Kathy. No wonder I knew that I had it. Yeah, so I guess we read it at some point. A few years ago, maybe. Not sure. Good memory. Okay, so what is something you're surprisingly good at that has nothing to do with work?
Standing on one leg. Yeah, I was a former gymnast, and so I have pretty good balance. And as I age, I'm very grateful that I have good balance. So
yes,
I can stand for a long time.
That's really amazing. Okay, learning new things all the time. All right, and I have one last rapid fire round question for you. What's your most used emoji right now?
Oh. You know, I'm a 2-home person. So my husband's in North Carolina. I'm sending a lot of the smooch one, with the heart.
Oh, yeah. I love that.
He's my biggest cheerleader and I miss him, but being able to be here and lean into this new role has been fabulous. So yeah.
Oh, I love this. Well, I'm excited to celebrate with you when we do end up at ASAE annual in August. It'll be very special. I'm thankful to you for joining me today and answering some of these questions about leading with intention and sharing some of your great advice and guidance from your experience and from all of the things that you've been able to put into practice in your own life. So thank you very much for joining us today.
And thank you, KiKi, for making space for all our voices. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So thank you to everyone who joined us today live and asked some great questions and also just shared some of the comments that you had there. I have to say that talking with Wendy-Jo, I was expecting a lot because I have heard wonderful things about her. Joanna introduced us and I thought, oh my gosh, so she comes with wide acclaim from Joanna Pineda too. And I have to say, Wendy-Jo, you surpassed even my expectations that were already very high. So I cannot wait to be able to celebrate with you in person. And also, I hope that we have another chance to have you back on and to have a future discussion to find out more about some of the leadership advice and guidance and experience that you just practice on a regular basis. So thanks to all of you for joining us. Thank you for your thoughtful insight, Wendy-Jo, and your generosity in today's conversation. Some things that I took away from this conversation: that leading with intention is about clarity, consistency, and courage. You want to have those things in living your values. That living your values is really important. Also, that creating belonging takes vulnerability. It takes active listening. I'm looking over here to my notes if you're wondering what I'm looking at. Active listening and real everyday action. And then also, I have to say that recognition like the ASAE Key Award reflects this ripple effect that intentional leadership has on entire communities. So all of the people who were showing up and talking about your experiences with the AA and HPI group within ASAE, that's just an example of this ripple effect and how we can continue to help each other grow and rise up when we have that intentional leadership. So with all of that, to connect with Wendy-Jo Toyama and to learn more about her work at the American Epilepsy Society, please visit her profile on LinkedIn. Also visit aesnet.org to find out more about the American Epilepsy Society. And then also, if you want more stories like Wendy-Jo's, subscribe to the Association Chat magazine for powerful profiles, leadership insights, and ideas that shape the future of associations. So until next time, this is KiKi L'Italien signing off and reminding you to keep asking questions every day. Because as Joseph Campbell once said, the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek.